like, I totally support capitalism to a degree. And I mean, I work for a major corporation, but I also recognize the negative impact of capitalism. And I think a lot of what we see in terms of like the humanity in us as people is a lot of that's been stripped because of capitalism. You can't blame it all on capitalism by any stretch of the imagination, but you do have people, because corporations need to hit the street and make sure that they're making their stock prices and their quotes and their quarterly earnings. And I think it's that trickle down, right? Like they're willing to treat people badly, and therefore it trickles down. So the guy that maybe works for that organization who's putting a ton of stress and pressure because they need to get every ounce of productivity out, whether it's sales or engineering, and they have to go home and be with their families and try to be like okay when they've just been mentally abused all day. I mean, I'm hoping with this great resignation, a lot of that's going to change, because so many companies are having a hard time keeping people, having a hard time retaining people, and new hires. Like they're going to have to figure out that you have to treat people with a certain amount of dignity. And retention is a part of your bottom line.
Yeah.
I think it's taken a long time for corporations to recognize that.
So, yeah. Corporations, that's a whole other conversation.
I'll
We
save
can
that.
have for sure. You know, and prices right now. So just, I'm changing the subject.
Please go ahead.
Just for a second.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, I'm wondering what your thought process is about this. So over the pandemic, one of the things that suffered was gas, because none of us were going anywhere, right? Gas was what, $2 and something a gallon. I mean, I bought gas once a month because I wasn't really going anywhere. And now all of a sudden, look at it. I feel it's a get even. Let's get even with the people scenario.
I think it's just greed. I think it's
that's it. That's what I meant. Yeah.
I think it's really unfair that people are blaming Biden. I read it was like, it wasn't the Washington Post. What's the conservative one? Washington Times, I think, had a headline, and it was like Biden's gas prices. And it's like, the sad part is people don't realize he has nothing to do with gas prices. Not to mention gas prices are high all over the world right now. It's not just in the US, and ours in comparison to Europe, we're way less.
Yeah. Which is why I say that's greed. That's why they're like, shit, we got to make up that money. Let's fuck them over. That's how I feel. That's what I'm thinking.
Oh, that's 100%. And they're using this bullshit excuse of
supply chain.
War.
Yeah.
And what really pisses me off is that the Democrats did bring a piece of legislation last week to the House floor, and every fucking Republican voted it down to actually stop price gouging for these companies. And nope, they said no.
Right.
And every single one of them, including these ones that Democrats continue to try to put on the pedestal, like Kinzinger and Liz Cheney, they all voted fucking no.
Yeah. It's interesting to me because like our company has asked that we work from the office 2 days a week, and we can work from home 3 days a week. And I'm like, no. No, I'm not driving because I don't want to buy the gas. I'm like, you want to pay me to drive to the office when we have proven for the last 2 years that I can do the job from my house?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, no, I don't. But then somebody's got to go get the mail, and I'm the only person here. So I'm like, all right, I'll drive 1 day a week. But I'm like, if gas was like, it was, I'm going to say it was the early 80s, because I was still a child. And I remember us having to go to the gas station based on the last number of our license plates. So odds went on
Oh,
one day, evens went another. I remember that was the early 80s. So that we had a gas crisis, and you want to do it, great. But we didn't use gas for the last 2 years. I'm
Not
gonna
to
bet you we have a
mention-
stockpile.
not to mention, I feel like, well, and I don't know if you've looked at airline prices.
I have.
Holy shit.
Yeah,
There,
but
it's
that's why
insane.
I don't fly anyway, but craziness. I had to get a flight from Las Vegas to Reno, and it was like 900 and some odd dollars. It's a 6-hour drive. I'm like, I'll drive it. We found one cheaper. I just had to leave on a Thursday instead of a Friday, but $900.
Oh, I just booked a ticket last week or the week before. I have to go. It's a work trip, so I'm not, but still, I'm still conscious. I don't want to just
Yes.
spend my company's money. I spend it like it's my own.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like almost, I think it came out to $1,000 for literally to Bozeman, Montana, which I know is a smaller airport. I get it. But at that, I'm like, it's not that far.
Mm-mm.
And like a friend of mine came out last weekend and yeah, saying from Portland, from with Seth from Portland, and it
Yeah.
was a very expensive. It was like $1,000.
Yeah, it's just and then they bellyache about being bailed out.
100%. And here's the other thing that this happened in 2008 is, and I'm sure you remember this, like when we would fly from Phoenix to San Diego, and it would be
Yeah.
like $59, sometimes even $29 each
Yep.
way. Now, granted, that was 20 years ago. I get that it was a long time ago. But then when gas prices went up, I think maybe it was like 2004 or 5, airline prices skyrocketed. They used the fact that fuel prices went up, but when fuel prices came back down, they never went back down. So it's kind of like, fuck you all. Like, this is their way of being able to increase prices. And
Yeah.
then even once it levels out, they don't have to change because now people have mentally gotten used to those prices. Like
Right.
it's totally psychological.
Well, that's the same thing living here, right? And every time I hear about this new tax and resort fees and all that, I just shake my head. I'm like, we're just literally pricing ourselves out of the tourist destination. Because now, sure, I can rent you a hotel room for $149, which is like a simple, easy going rate that everybody accepts. But I also have $250 in fees I want to tack on to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, oh my God. But, and again, so what's so interesting is I think, again, there's something else we might look at slightly differently, because when I think of the word capitalism, I do not think of corporations. Corporations are not capitalistic in my mind. Capitalism for me is individuals creating something and providing a certain, and helping their fellow man. That's to me what capitalism is, which is why I tell people I'm a borderline socialist, borderline, because I don't think corporations, anybody that is attempting to overtake in order for their own personal financial gain and to destroy an industry and Amazon is a fine example where I literally fluctuate back and forth every 5 seconds. Literally, like 1 minute I hate Amazon, the other minute I'm like, oh, let's see if Amazon has it. Now, I will often shop on Amazon and then go purchase it locally, like find
That's
out
what I
what I
do.
want. Yeah. But there are moments where I'm like, oh, damn, I need this. And I literally hop on Amazon and purchase it. And then I have to shake my head at myself. Like, what did you just do?
No, and I mean, I think that actually both of our we can look up the actual definition of capitalism, but it's a political system, right? So it's a political system which is made up of people,
Yep.
corporations, and the economy. Like corporations are what typically fuel the economy,
Yes.
right? So like, actually, I'm going to look it up.
Because I think capitalism in general is probably nowadays.
So here's the actual definition of capitalism: an
Okay.
economic and political system in which a country's trade and industry are controlled by private owners for profit rather than by the state.
Yes. That's capitalism.
Right.
And a lot of corporations are not, they're not individually controlled.
But they
Remember-
are.
No, they're group controlled, board of directors.
Stock, right. They have their shareholders and
Yeah.
stuff. Right.
So I think, I mean, I'm all for, that's why I'm, you know, again, I'm a monopoly buster, although the deregulation, so the Deregulation Act of 1996, thank you, Bill Clinton, I thought was a bad move. It was a terrible move.
100%. Clinton
So-
Clinton did a lot of shit that was not okay.
Yeah,
I
but
think
you know what, on
Democrats
the flip
should have
side, you know, everybody makes mistakes. So I'm not, I mean, like, unfortunately, freedom, even you sometimes make mistakes.
Of course I do. I would never say that I don't, but I don't think that incarcerating hundreds of thousands of people
Oh,
so for
agreed.
your own political career is like a mistake that people go, well, he gets the
Overlooked.
brush off. It's overlooked because, oh, the economy was great under Clinton. That's great, but it doesn't have to be either or, it can be
No.
and.
I agree. No, I
And-
totally agree. It does not. And actually, that's what I want to say about corporations. It doesn't have to be either or.
Sure.
But what corporation, and I'm sure there are some, because you know what? I do not know every corporation out there.
Of course.
I do not. I just know as a general rule, it's actually interesting because I don't own shares. So it's easy, maybe it's easy for me to say, I'm not walking a mile in that person's shoes. I'm certainly not counting on shares to provide for my financial future. It's not in my plan, as a matter of fact. It's, and maybe that's a stupid thing. I don't know. It's just my plan involves getting by my wits and the sweat of my own brow, really, I guess is what it comes down to, because it doesn't include working for a corporation much longer. Even though I technically don't work for a corporation, but I have discovered that nonprofits that are run on a national level, like the one I currently work for and the one I worked for prior, those are corporations. We don't have
100%.
shareholders.
Right. They have different status, but they still have to make so much money. And they have to actually increase it year over year in order to keep their status. There's a lot of regulation. Yeah.
And we're not able to move quickly. Like, you can't see a need and fill it.
Yeah.
Can't. Like here locally, working locally, if I see a need, like I have this woman that calls me and I'm working very hard to find her gas cards so she can get her husband to his chemo treatments. And short of me buying them out of my own pocket, I got no one. And I'm like, we just got $1 million donation. $1 million. We're not going to see, and I don't mean me personally. The money's not mine. It belongs to the organization.
Right.
Why can we not start a fund? Or, you know, I just like, this is me, right? I'm looking at it like, hey, I'm here locally. Give me X amount of money to spend locally to do things.
From my limited understanding of how, because my mom has written a lot of grants, like she oversees looking over grants now, like in retirement. A lot of the time an organization, say they get that $1 million, they have to spend it a certain way. Again, there's some regulations, like
this is just a donation. It's not a grant. It's an unrestricted, it's an unrestricted donation.
Right.
But like my corporation that I work for, and mind you, they're good people, right?
Yeah.
So they're not spending the money on themselves, right? I mean, my CEO makes what my CEO makes, and I'm okay with that, because if he worked for a corporation, a for-profit corporation, doing what he does for us, he'd be making 10 times as much.
Right.
So I'm not, yes, let's pay these people that can guide these huge ships. I'm in. It's not an issue for me. But I have decided I personally am more of a fan of boots on the ground fundraising. it works better for me. I feel more passionate about it. Do I want to fund cancer research? Hell yeah. Do I want to see cancer eradicated? Yes, please.
Of course, absolutely.
Absolutely. So therefore, I have no issue with how they spend the money. As a matter of fact, our goal is 90 cents of every dollar we raise goes to the mission.
That's
That's it.
pretty incredible.
Yeah, it is. And it's not perfect every time, but that's personally what we strive for. Like when I'm raising funds, when I'm raising money and I'm hosting an event, right? I got to be like, I got to raise 10 times as much so that only 10% of what I'm doing goes to pulling off the event.
That makes sense.
So that's how I look at it. So, and I feel that a lot of very large nonprofits do work hard to maintain that. Like, and it's easily transparent. You can easily look at it. So it's always cracks me up when we're like, well, your CEO makes $300,000 a year. I'm like, how generous of them, really?
Yeah, look at hospitals. Like I was reading a while ago about hospital groups, and they'll be Catholic or Christian, and they have a 501c3 status, so they get all of these tax benefits, and yet they're 100% run for profit, and their C-suite executives make way more than 300,000.
Yeah, millions.
Way more. And these are the same people. I mean, you hope, and I didn't do enough research into it, so I can't speak highly of this, but it's like you hope these hospital groups are offering some free services for people in communities who can't afford it, or that there's some sort of a fund that helps. But at the end of the day, they're charging a lot of money for healthcare services.
Yeah, a whole lot. Which, I mean, oh my God, we could definitely have an entire conversation about the healthcare system, which we will do at a future date. But along those lines, it's interesting. There's a hospital group here. It is a nonprofit hospital. I believe there are 5 of them here in this city. And what I have noticed about them, and it's Catholic run by Catholics, they give a lot.
Good. They should.
Really do. And that's what I said. And that's what I'm looking for. So you know what? If their CEO makes $1.5 million a year, okay, I'm just making that up. I don't know that he and or she does, but then I say, but they're giving back all of this to the community. Then, oh my God, whatever he and or she is doing is the right thing. So yeah, I pay them $1.5 million to do that. So, but on the flip side, that's why it was so funny when the big news one was the Goodwill's CEO was making a lot of money. And I'm like, but are they doing what they say they're going to do? Are they meeting the needs that they say they're going to meet? And are they giving back to your communities what they say they're going to give back? Then that person is needed, because he and or she is righting the ship. It was the same thing with Komen. Is our CEO was making like $300,000 a year, or maybe 400 at the most. But if she had worked for, and she came from a cosmetic company, and she was probably making 5 times that. So I'm sorry. What you're saying is that me as an employee, I'm making a living wage, right? I am able to pay my bills. What you're saying is I don't deserve that because I work for this nonprofit. Are you going to volunteer? Then are you going to volunteer to do my job so they don't have to pay someone to do it? Is that what you're telling me?
Right.
I'm missing the point here. Anyways, sorry.
No, I think actually part of the problem is those jobs don't pay enough. And
that's true.
Same with even political jobs. I think part of the reason a lot of people who get corrupted may go in for the right reason, and then it's like, okay, well, I'm making a staff like in Arizona, the state legislators, I think they only make like 19,000 a year.
Oh, wow.
Or 25, maybe it's gone up. Like it's really small. So what does that mean? You're going to get people who are already incredibly wealthy, where they don't need that money. They're doing it because they want to, which is great. I'm not saying there's anything wrong, but you're still only attracting there's only a small group of people that can do that.
Right.
And then, or you get someone who's like, okay, I'm going to do this. And maybe that's where they are like, okay, well, I'm getting offered $1 million and all I have to do is vote on this bill where, yeah, it's going to incarcerate a lot of people, but I can maybe do these other things. Like, you're constantly bargaining, as opposed to if you actually paid a reasonable salary, you're going to get a lot more people and they won't be influenced, hopefully, by, I mean, you can't stop that 100%, but they're a lot less likely to be incentivized to take money from outsiders.